You guys know the routine, so in the chat, if you could please let me know if you have questions, and I'll call on you, and we'll go from there. So we'll go ahead and get started with Rusty Simmons from the San Francisco Chronicle.
Good morning, Coach. I was going to ask you about the basketball statement that just came out about pausing for 2 weeks. Does that impact you guys at all? And how close are you following what's happening with the other teams on campus?
Very close. I talk to Coach Fox daily, really. And I think it doesn't necessarily impact us, but it's one more example of how fragile this thing is, and how we just got to be vigilant on and off the field about the protocols, because it's one test, or things can change quickly. So we're certainly paying attention, and also stressing to everybody in the program how vigilant and disciplined we got to be to give ourselves the best opportunity to keep practicing and playing and moving forward.
And you've been clear about saying you're going to let the athletic department talk about anything specific with the football program. But can you tell us in general how you guys have been doing with daily testing and everything so far in camp?
Yeah, the process is very clear. How we get to the stadium. Once we get to the stadium, the protocol we follow to get our testing done, and then be cleared for practice. We have outdoor meetings, socially distant meetings, so we're really minimizing risk everywhere. The practice is the practice, though. I mean, you got to practice football to play football, and so we get everybody gets cleared before we're able to do that. I don't know that anything is 100% right now, but our folks have done a great job of putting a process in place that mitigates risk as best we can.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to Jeff Rado from SI.
Yeah, I wonder if, Justin, if you could just sort of give us, you're about a week and a half out from a football game. Can you give us a sense of where you think you're at, what you're happy with, what your concerns are? I'm sure they're everywhere because you're a coach, but just evaluate, if you would, how it's gone so far and where you're at.
Considering the unique nature of our summer and early fall, and then the guys returning to pick up practice, relatively quickly, I thought they've done a really good job. Coaches, players, everybody of, being really efficient with the time. And I know we spoke about this earlier, but it's not like a traditional camp where you're here all day with the players, because they have classes. And so we're essentially in a 20-hour, they call it CARA hours, which are the compliance rules that we have to abide by through the NCAA. So you get 20 hours a week with them. So you have to be really efficient with your time and what we're doing in that time and how we're practicing. I just really thought everybody's done a great job to get to this point. Certainly you never feel like you're quite there. We're a work in progress, but we've made a lot of progress to this point. So really encouraged by everybody. And I know we got some work to do before that first game, but we've come a long way.
I was going to say, is it exciting or is it a little scary that you have a game in just 10, 11 days? Does it feel like it's coming too fast, or do you feel like, okay, we're going to be ready to go on the 7th?
Yeah, I think there's a level of excitement that you can feel. Guys, we've practiced quite a bit. I think we're on 16 today, and there reaches a point where guys need to go out and compete against somebody else, and we'll be ready for that at the end of next week. And again, they just really have done a nice job of trying to do what we're asking them to do, and we are walking that tightrope of preparing them, knowing that the summer was a little different than it has been in the past, or a lot different, but really great investment by everybody. So the excitement level is building.
If I could just follow up with a different topic. A week from today is Election Day. Obviously, people have been voting for a couple of weeks now, but I believe many teams around the country will take that day off. Are you guys taking the day off? And what conversations have you had with your players, or have they had with themselves? You got a pretty socially active bunch. Just wondering what kind of conversations have been have been held about the importance of voting and just kind of what's going on in the country right now?
We will not be practicing next week, next Tuesday. And prior, maybe a month ago or so, we might have been a little over a month ago, we developed some of our staff. We all got together and tried to figure out a way to get people, something we can do that's tangible to get people involved. And we created a kind of a living document where no matter where you're from, Texas or California or Washington or you name it, Hawaii, that you could get registered pretty easily. So we got anybody that was wanting to get registered. We try to make that as simple a process as possible. And so everybody got registered to vote, and then it's encouraging them to be informed as best they can. And it's not our role to, other than present, the questions that are being asked, the people that are involved, and then let them do their own research and decide what they think is important to them. And then they can go vote accordingly. And so it's really centered around that. And I think guys have definitely taken that to heart. And I would imagine we'll have a pretty good amount of guys that choose to take part in the process next Tuesday.
Again, it's not your role to tell them what to do, but does this feel like athletes are more engaged now than, say, 4 years ago or in previous election years?
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's maybe the way they get information now, and with social media and really information being at your fingertips, as opposed to, and it was here 4 years ago, but even 8, 12, 16 years ago, it was just maybe there wasn't the same information available, or we weren't as informed in those days. However you want to look at that, but I think guys are certainly more aware and active now than they've ever been.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to Trace Travers from Rivals.
Yeah, Justin, on some of the football stuff, you guys had a little more of the play the game, the two huddle, the contact stuff over the weekend. How do you feel like the guys have taken to, playing the game when you've had this much of a layoff?
Yeah, it's been really valuable time because when you put them in those situations and you essentially the play the game periods, everybody is off the field. It's the players only, it's the 11 on offense, the 11 on defense. Officials at a couple times, and there's nobody back behind them telling them, reminding them what the call is or what to do on that given call, or an alignment, maybe adjustment. So it's really good for them to have to solve some of their own problems and not have that safety net. So we're going to continue to do more and more of that, but those are really productive periods, because you truly see kind of where you're at, and substitution and mechanics also get involved, and play clocks. So I thought they'd done a nice job with that. So that's one part of it. The two huddle, some of the physical drills, there was really good energy in those. We've had some 2-minute situations, obviously the third downs and red zone. We've got a lot of work there too, but those play the game periods where everybody's off the field give you a really good sense of kind of where you're at and how your operation is going.
Where are you at with some of that operation? We're
getting better. And I think the guys are doing a good job. I thought it's been pretty dang clean for considering, and I think we'll continue to get better. We're going to do more and more of that in the next 10 days or so. And each time we do that, there's a lot of lessons being learned. And it's also good for the coaches, because we have to, everybody's, again, off the field, and the players are the ones out there, communicating and substituting and making calls. So it's really good, valuable time for us.
Is there any player in particular who has kind of, swam when the opportunity has been there to sink or swim?
Oh, that'd be a tough one. There's a lot of guys noticeably getting better. Even guys that have played a lot. So it'd be hard for me to pick one. If you have some in mind, I imagine we could talk through them. But I think there are guys flashing at different positions at different times. You see it on offense, the skill positions. You see it on defense, and I think they'll continue to do that. But ultimately, we got to get as many guys as possible flashing because we know what's ahead of us and the type of teams we're going to be playing.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to Jake Curtis from SI.
Yeah, Justin, how do you feel about the progress of the offense, given that you're installing a new offense and there's a restricted amount of time to get everything together?
I think they're doing a good job. We had springtime with those 4 practices, which I know doesn't sound like much, but it's better than 0. And then the meeting time throughout the spring and summer. And then, this abbreviated, or this camp that we've been in, so to speak, I think they've done a really good job. We're never, as I mentioned before, we're never going to be quite where we want to be, but as far for, as being a new offense, new terminology, really a lot of new, I think they've done a really good job. And that's a tribute to the players working at it, and then the coaches and how they're preparing them and how they're meeting with them, and the efficiency there has been really good.
Do you think it'll take a couple of games to really feel comfortable in there, or do you think it'll be ready by November 7th?
Well, no matter if it's a new offense or an old offense, I would think we're going to continue to work to get better throughout the season. So I'm really confident in that group, and I think they're going to continue to improve the more we practice and the more we play. And that's no different for our defense, which is, virtually the same system we've had in place, but there's new faces and players. So we expect the same out of them.
And last thing, how important is Chris Brown to the offense, and how important is it for him to stay healthy?
He's really important. I mean, Chris is a talented player, as we've all seen. He's a good runner. He's a tough guy, and he's had to fight through some things injury-wise. So we got to do a good job of, getting him involved, and also, utilizing some other guys. And we have some other guys in that room that we think can help us in certain ways. And so I'm excited for all those guys, but Chris is a talented guy, and, it's important for our entire team to stay healthy. And so I would say, absolutely, it's important for him to stay healthy, and we're going to do everything we can. We also know that football is a physical game, and you're going to have some injuries from time to time, and we'll do the best to mitigate those, or do our best to mitigate those.
Yeah, and is there anything you can do differently to mitigate his physical injury stuff? Or
preparation's part of it. The position he plays is a physical position. He's a physical guy. I mean, he embraces that part of the game. So Chris is also one of those guys. Sometimes we gotta protect him from himself a little bit, and how we every run at practice, he wants to finish it 40 yards down the field, and he wants to take every rep. He'll carry the ball every time if you let him. But part of that will be how we use them in the game situations. And there's also other guys in that room that can do some good things for us, and we'll utilize their skills when Chris isn't in there.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll go back to Rusty Simmons from the Chronicle.
Coach, the other day, Chase mentioned that you guys were pumping in crowd noise during practice. Have you gotten any more clarity from the state, county, conference about what kind of fan attendance might be allowed on this year, or about what you guys might be able to do with the AP system?
Yeah, there's some rules, conference rules on the decibel levels, and they're pretty particular about, when teams are in the huddle or after a certain type of play, you can go from this decibel level to that decibel level, and our game day management crew is all over it. So it's supposed to be pretty consistent throughout the conference, and I have those guidelines, but I couldn't tell you exactly what they are off the top of my head. So it's consistent throughout the conference. I do know that, and there's people who will be in charge of, raising or lowering the decibel level at a certain point in the game, depending on if you're home or away and that type of thing. So, yeah.
And anything with attendance at all?
Nothing that I've heard that's changed yet. So as of right now, I wouldn't anticipate anybody. But again, those are not decisions that I'm making. I'm really just following the rules like everybody else, and the state and the city health officials will have everything to do with that. And that won't be up to me.
And if I can ask one random one, wondering what you thought of the DK Metcalf play this weekend, and how often you use stuff that's happened in the NFL or even other college places to
All the
show
time.
your team.
All the time. We have this little segment we always string together called Football 101. And usually we have those we usually show them on Thursday meetings during the season, but during our camp, we'll string them together. So, for example, like last week or a couple of weeks ago, we had pylon play. So every time there's a play at a pylon, and what are the rules around that play, and inbounds, out of bounds, like the pylon play that came up at the I think it was maybe
Indiana, Penn State.
Yep, that one's on the reel. The situational, we call it no moss, which means go down before you go in the end zone. That came up twice with the Falcons and the same Indiana Penn State game. And then the pure effort plays, like that you see from the guy in Seattle, Chasen Buddha, who is a fast guy. And they held them to, I think, a fourth down. There was a fourth down stop on that series. And so it's fun to show those. And we got a bank of them. And and the guys will always, there's a few guys that when those plays happen over the weekend, they'll just text me and say, when are we watching that one? So they got to get used to that part of it, but we'll absolutely show that one. What an incredible play. And not only physically, but the effort it took. So it's a great example there.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to Jim McGill from Bear Insider.
Hey, Justin, can you talk a little bit about the quarterback depth heading into this season, how the backups are doing, how the fight for number 2 is going right now with Devon and Brosh and some of the other guys that are competing in the quarterback room?
Yep. Chase has done a really good job. He's had a great, I guess we call this camp so far. I think Devon has gotten a lot better too. That's been fun to watch him because, some guys who are upperclassmen like that, and maybe there's a guy that's ahead of him currently, but Devon practices like, he's going to be the starter, and that's what you want. So currently it's pretty clear 1 and 2. And then the battle for that 3 spot is pretty wide open. And the guys have had their moments, and we're getting some good repetitions from all of them, with really the 4 remaining quarterbacks. So they're all getting turns in those practices with the 75. And then we work a couple of them in Devo, and then we'll flip-flop them on given days. But the third one is really up in the air currently.
Can you talk a little bit about your observations that you've been able to note about the new incoming quarterbacks? I know one was here in the spring and one's a fall arrival. Has anything stood out about either of those guys?
Yeah. Jayden played a lot in high school, was a really successful high school quarterback. He can throw the ball. He's a good athlete. That's one of the things that maybe has jumped out a little bit more is just his athleticism. I thought we saw some of it on his high school tape, but he has more athleticism than even I thought he might have had. So that's a good thing. I think he's learning a lot, a little different style and system, but he's doing a good job. And then Zach's been really I think the thing that's jumped out about Zach, his leadership ability, he's very aware. He's really into football, and he can throw it. So both those guys have had good moments. I think are as good or better than we even hoped when we recruited them. So it's exciting to see those guys get some chances in there. And then Spencer continues to improve, and Spencer can throw the ball. And I think he's still, like all of them are working to grasp the offense, but they've come a long way in a pretty short amount of time. So that's been fun to watch. And same for Robbie. Robbie Rowell's done some good things. So, yep, I think all those guys have had their moments.
Are you pretty comfortable with the depth this season as opposed to last year where it was maybe a little bit more tenuous?
Yeah, I think we have more people. We have more guys available to play, and then their experience level increases, all of them. So We didn't maybe have that last year, but I think this time for him's been extremely valuable. Just the number of reps that they're able to get and learning in the system has been key. So I like that group, and I think they're going to, like I said before, they're all continuing to get better. I think Chase is better, Devon is better. They're all continuing to improve, and that's ultimately what you want.
Thanks.
Hey, Jeff Frotto from SI.
Yeah, Justin, could you talk a little bit about defensive line? Seems to be an area maybe where you don't have as much depth as you might elsewhere. Can you talk about the Johnsons and especially with Brett, how you expect to utilize him, whether it'll be inside or move him out? And also Aaron Maldonado is a guy who, wasn't around for all of last season. How is he doing and what are you expecting out of him?
Yeah, the Johnsons, I think Zionde is playing really well. He, physically and mentally is really tuned in. He's playing hard. I mean, Zionde it looks really good right now. And Brett has kind of taken that next step that you'd hope from a guy played a lot as a freshman, basically started the entire year. And, Brett is going to play some different spots for us, as is Zionde. And that's a tribute to their skill set and also just their capacity to handle a little bit more mentally. So they're not always going to be the 4-eye or not always going to be the 0. We got things where Zionde can play really all the way from the guard out to the tight end, and Brett from the 0 all the way out to a 4 or 5 technique. So both those guys, pretty dang good football players, really good. And I think Brett's second year, we'll see that step, and Zionde, as I mentioned, I think this is as good as he's ever looked. So Aaron Maldonado, had played for us some last year, and I think he's a real active guy. He's got some quickness. He loves football, and he's a really tough guy. So expect him to do some things in there on the interior. And then we're going to have some other new faces and names. I think J.H. Tevis has improved quite a lot from a year ago, and J.H. has had a good first few weeks of practice here, and he's going to be a guy that helps us. And, some of those youngsters as well that are freshmen, but are going to get some chances to play. Because as you mentioned, maybe the numbers aren't quite where we've had them in the past, but that's okay. It'll give some of these other guys an opportunity.
Yeah, I believe you have 3 freshmen, defensive linemen, Roberts, Saunders, Correa. Can you just talk in a little bit of detail about each of those guys and where they're at? Will any or all of them be on the field on Saturdays?
Yeah, I would expect, Stanley McKenzie, would expect him to do some things for us. We'll see kind of by game and which packages we're in, how much, but I think Stanley's done a nice job. Let's see, Jayden Roberts. Jayden, we kind of recruited as a two-way guy, offense and defense, and he's very talented. He's learning a lot technically about the position. Ethan Saunders has got some really good quick twitch traits, and he's a powerful guy. So Ethan, again, I think some of these guys, might play early, but in some of them it might be the first week, or maybe it's the 3rd, 4th, 5th. And sometimes that happens, especially with freshmen as they get into their groove a little bit. And there's just kind of a steep learning curve once they come from high school and technically, and maybe what we're asking them to do. But I think all those guys have a chance to help us, and we'll just see maybe how soon.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we've got time for probably one more. If you do have one besides that, please let me know in the chat right now. It's Trace Travers from Rivals.
Yeah, something I've been curious about with all your guys' regulations due to the coronavirus is I'm assuming there aren't student managers out there for equipment and video people. How are those positions being filled during this time?
We have a limited number. That's a good question. Limited number of managers and film people. So we're really utilizing the people we do have, and even people on our support staff who in the past maybe haven't, we got people helping out in every area. Let's just put it that way. People that are helping out in video, people that are helping out with water. because we don't have, you don't have, just bottles of water that you're passing around. You have to set out individual bottles of water so they can go get something to drink. And it's, something that a lot of people wouldn't think about, but that takes a lot of prep. You got to have individual water bottles set up for our water breaks. So things like that. And our student managers who are here, we have a limited number, but those guys, they do such a good job, man. They're grinders, and they're critical in practice. I mean, to have a practice without the help of those student managers would be really difficult. So they've done an awesome job. And again, our numbers are down, but it goes back to everybody kind of pitching in and, trying to pull our weight so everybody can have a good practice and get us ready for the season.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, we've got time for one final one from Jeff Ferrado.
Yeah, kind of along that same theme, Justin, can you talk about what your training staff has to do differently in this environment than normal, and how they've adapted to that? I would think that's a job that kind of has to be up close and personal. How have they managed to make the adjustments?
Do you mean sports medicine or strength and conditioning?
Well, either one, but mostly I was referring to the sports medicine folks.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they're, as you mentioned, up close and personal, whether it's taping ankles or providing care in treatment or even on the field at times. So, like, for example, the training room is set up outside under a tent, and we got some tables in there, and they have plastic dividers. So when they come in and get their ankles taped, kind of like when you go to one of these places to, I don't know, the bank or whatever, they got those dividers up, and then on the field, everybody's gloved and has masks. And, our trainers have done a great job. They're obviously right in the middle of all of this and helping us understand what we need to be doing, how we can help them the best, but they're critical to our success as well. So it's, as I mentioned before, is everybody trying to do, the best they can. And we have some policies and protocols that they all put together, and we follow them. So.
And I presume that your players are, reminded every minute of what's going on right now. I presume they're respectful and appreciative of the kind of work that those folks are doing for them.
Yeah, I think we all appreciate, players, coaches, everybody appreciate the people who are really, making this happen, because it takes more than the players and the coaches. It's just so many people, and it's, complicated and difficult times for them. And they're out here helping us. And you talk about the trainers, you talk about our facilities people that help us, set these meeting rooms up. You talk about our support staff that helps get food to the players. There's just a lot of different folks who are doing a fantastic job trying to help us do all this.
Thanks.
Okay, you guys.